I took my love, I took it down. I climbed a mountain, and I turned around. And I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills, until the landslide brought me down. Stevie Nicks wrote Landslide in 1974 when facing a crossroads in her life, torn between deciding whether to go back to school or to continue on with Lindsey Buckingham towards what would become Fleetwood Mac. In her words, she wrote the song looking out at the Rocky Mountains, pondering the avalanche of everything that had come crashing down on us. At that moment, my life truly felt like a landslide in many ways. In meditating upon the circumstances of her life at that point in time, with Buckingham away touring with Don Everly, the commercial failure of Buckingham Nicks, broke, lonely and frustrated, Nicks became acutely aware of things slipping beyond her control, their movement, and begins to reckon with the infirmity of the ground beneath her feet. It's serendipitous that this occurred while she was looking at the Rocky Mountains, geological bodies that are millions and millions of years old, erupting from the earth to reach towards the heavens, an action underpinned by the discrete movement of the tectonic plates upon which we all stand. As her pen touches the paper, Stevie Nicks creates a constellation between those tectonic plates, her person and circumstances, and us, the listener, who now hear the song nearly 5 decades after its release. We're drawn into collusion with the lithic, the geologic, and the cosmic as we move and are moved by the earth. The universe began with a movement, a coming together, a collision. Cosmological models of the universe theorize this beginning as a spark or a burst, an accelerating outward expansion. Although the origin of being, all being, is a contested landscape, the tremors of this coming together, this biggest of bangs, reach us, rippling outwards through space and time from some unimaginably distant epicenter. If we are to position the start within that eruption of cosmic materiality, we find ourselves apprehending a cataclysm of energy and matter, peering into and bearing witness to that which precedes all other ruptures, pains, wounds, insertions, and displacements. The sensation caused by the original interaction of matter, the trauma, framed as geotrauma, that which menaces all being and structure in existence. A jagged howl of pain reverberating within stone and within bone, emanating from some invisible being. We find memories of it in the pre-solar grains that haunt the extraterrestrial rocks that pierce the Earth's atmospheres, the tiny coral of the inner ear, the matter of matter. Dwelling within all things, we become aware of it only through catastrophe or attunement, Nick's meditation, and the avalanche. As Robin McKay reports, by fast-forwarding seismography, you can hear the Earth scream, a pain of creation nested within other antecedent traumas. The undulation of the seismograph can be perceived as a cipher, an earthly message which speaks to present disturbance but calls back to the accretion of the Earth over millennia, coming from deep within the iron sea over which the Earth's crust has hardened. Consider a cooling-off period of interstellar proportions, once cosmic matter taking a much-needed break from the solar system, as it finds itself locked away within the Earth's atmosphere and below the Earth's surface. It is important for us not to mistake this hardening for ossification. There is still movement in the earthly layers. As the molten core turns, tectonic plates shift and buckle, mountains rise and valleys fall. Amidst it all, the gravitational pull of the moon brings swells and retreats of the sea. Questions of geologic movement are questions of matter, entangling energy, space, and time. These questions reveal the dynamism of the lithic, challenging conceptions of terrestrial fixity. Upon closer inspection, what we mistake for solid ground is just a very slow sea. Considering the Earth's movement transports us into temporal frames well trod but consistently staggering. Our very slow sea creates and finds space, expanding, contracting, protruding and falling over, a liquid terrestriality finding its level over millennia. We watch as animations present to us the convergence and divergence of landmasses, unity and separation marked out as continents. Amidst it all, lines of drift can appear as pathways, dotted like currents and channels, traces of passage too slow to be felt in the tumult of the contemporary. Humans would come to mirror the drifts of the continents as populations began to spread across the Earth's surface. Human history is really a branch of geology. The marriage of human and stone extends back to that original collision of matter. Before humanity was a record in stone, we made records on stone, and it was into stone that humankind made its first inscriptions, transferring data from etcher to etched into, to be fixed, terrestrialized, foundational. These marks are the bedrock of human history. From those first petroglyphs, strange renderings of animals and gods incised into the rock face, and the grinding of stones for dust and pigments applied liberally to stone and skin with reeds or hands, to Moses and his tablets, to lithography, to throwing stones in acts of protest, and the creation of cairns. With the movement of people, however, the geologic too began to move, at speed. Despite the kinship of human and stone, geological movement was long seen as something that occurred external to the human. We know now, however, that these movements are caused by that earthly animal stretching its skin, shivering, quivering, flinching in protest. The movements trigger the fall of rocks, the slides of land, a rustle causing vibrations which grow to waves of seismic proportions. The earth quakes, a rush of power across a fault line, generated by tectonic movement, a subsurface rockfall. Vibrations ripple and shake the surface, displacing that which masquerades as fixed. The promise that we will live on after death, once the dream of emperors and kings, is now a horrifying reminder of the impact humanity is having upon the planet. The intimacy of the relationship we have with the earth has been thrown into sharp relief, an accident from which it is impossible to look away. As we expand our frames of reference to encompass earthly being, not just the beings on earth, our once limited temporal frames become troubled, distended, and unfamiliar. Thinking in this manner necessitates an embrace of multiplicity, the I becoming lowercase, now merely a component of a word or a sentence. There is a dissolution of the discrete, as we consider existence instead as a fabric, an entangled mesh. The human is not a singular being comprised instead of an infinity of bacteria and microorganisms. Similarly, the earth is not singular. Acknowledging the cosmic origins of Earth warrants recognizing it as formed through an accumulative process, the collision of matter, but too, as part of an intricate system composed of stars, planets, moon, and sun, which has grown now to encompass all manner of human-made objects. It's only through an expanded frame that we can begin to understand how things exist within it. This is not limited to being, but to time as well. Events, moments, movements, and catastrophes are not discrete, but rather fold and enfold into a complex fabric, a continual record of change and liveliness. While the events of Mount St. Helens in 1980, Gracetown in 1996, Thredbo in 1997, and Oso in 2014 are all singular in their particular devastations, they're all part of a great twitching of the earth. When the seemingly fixed surface of a landscape ruptures through seismic impact, when boulders or a mass of earth rush down from a height, a great temporal release can be perceived, albeit from the secure shores of safety. But in the landslide, temporalities become complicated, not purely singular. The longue durée of the past and the expansive future collide, becoming one in a heavy mass of lithic movement. We return continually to the collision of matter that formed the earth. These events are reverberation, a whisper, a shadow of that deep past. Apprehending our seismic waves as sound waves, communiques from the deep, we think back to Stevie Nicks, deep within the Rocky Mountains. While she speaks to the instability of her present in Landslide, she speaks too to a history of unfirm ground. Her landslide is our landslide, and our landslide is the landslide cascading down the sides of the Rocky Mountains, a continuance of those same processes that birthed the mountains. Being moved, we are impressed. We look for meaning and take measurements. But complicated now by our intrinsic link with the geologic, where do we measure from? And where do we measure to? It was a chance encounter, drifting about the internet, that led us to where this whole thing began. It began with an archive, the Landslide Viewer and Landslide Reporter, a slowly loading citizen science page created by the National Aeronautics and Space Association, NASA. Maybe it was fate that brought us to this, some collusion on the part of the elements inside our various devices and those still within the Earth, that brought us to consider the Earth's tremors and slides and fissures. This map was developed to plot out earthly movements, inviting people around the globe to submit landslide, landslip, and rockfall events that they witness, with a view to developing a means of predicting future events. We read the entries aloud to each other. May 15, 2018. The Super Pit East Wall, Fimiston, Western Australia. 2 wall slips affected the Super Pit, suspending mining activities. The first one occurred Monday at 9:30 p.m. The second one happened within 12 hours after the first. There are plans to reduce underground mining activities. Time and date unknown, the Dalton Highway creep. A 60-foot tall and 300-foot wide finger of debris is creeping towards Dalton Highway at mile 219, near the Dietrich River, with an average rate of 1 centimetre a day due to thawing permafrost. The absences of the archive strike us. No reference to Threadbow, a disaster that lingers in relatively recent memory. No reference either to Gracetown, the cliff collapse that altered our parents' approaches to beachside shelter forever. These movements continue as recall, as action. While landslides recorded in Ulyanovsk, the Clarence River, Millersburg and Bermuda demonstrate to us the movements occurring across the globe. Presented in this manner, they are removed from time. The impossibility of this project becomes an unavoidable reality. An archive with a scope as limited as this cannot truly capture the movement of the Earth, despite its good intentions. Within this database, the geologic is present as subject, but too, as participant, when we consider the manipulation of minerals and metals towards technological ends. Despite the purpose of this database to be a full and complete record of earthly movement, it's strangely lacking. It's like trying to view the ocean through a puddle. We've been attempting to backfill the database, flooding it with submissions of landslides long settled. In 1951, the question was asked, is a pebble rolled by a torrent a document? Of concern here is not simply the matter itself, but the trace of movement. If a pebble might be a document, how might we reference it amidst the frame of an archive? Especially one that concerns itself within the geologic. And worst yet, what happens if the archive itself is composed of the geologic, in however abstract a way? We break it down into smaller bits, eroding at time and matter until it becomes comprehensible. Our continents become formations, our boulders pebbles. Eons become centuries before shrinking back to minutes. In doing so, we avoid the enormity of the cosmos and the existential terror that accompanies this shift in perspective. Or we attempt to. The rare earth minerals that power our connectivity bring us into contact with records of catastrophes past, and too, with humanity's past, as we consider the synchronicity between the stone held in the hand of Paleolithic human and the phone clutched tightly in the hands in this room. Outside of the database, we can perceive the links not just through time, but through matter. Despite our attempts to close off cosmic materiality by limiting frames of reference to timescales of encounter, that which can touch us, the cosmic still reverberates within, as geotraumatic memory. The waves of some great tremor reach us, even as much as we try to remain unmoved. Those same pre-solar grains that remember their ancient collision continue to feel its effects, and as such, so do we, contained as they are within bone and blood. The heat of the collision might still warm us, touch at us across time, but it does so because it forms part of us, working through and into the archive, struggling to fit event and object into categorical frames. The barriers separating these break down, as they should. We use geology to record geology, whilst being geologic ourselves. Perhaps we need to re-examine Stevie's song in light of all of this. Time does make you bolder, and it's true, even children do get older, and she, herself, is getting older too. But she's talking about being of an unquantifiable age, one that surpasses human presence on Earth. When Stevie sings that she sees her reflection in the snow-covered hills, the voice we hear is that of the mountain itself.
Thank you.